Everything must change.
Straight Out University, Big John is the host with the plan. Time to wake the sleeping giant that lives in every man. Forget the ordinary path, that blueprint's outdated. We building legends here, totally self-created. You need the 4 pillars for total fulfillment. Money, muscle, frame in the game, that's the mission. Master your finances, forge your body, your mindset. Level up your influence, make them all respect. Yet, stop settling for a life that's just a faded dream. Time to build your empire, make your own world shine supreme. This is the goal, let's get to work. Yeah, Straight Out University.
What's good, everybody? How's everybody doing today? I hope you are having a great Sunday. Today's going to be a great day. I got a very special guest. I'm so happy to have this man on. We've talked a little bit about some stuff in the podcasting world, and I'm so glad to be able to do this collab. Please, everybody, welcome my friend here, Jesse. If you could give us a little bit of information about yourself and introduce you to the crowd.
What's up, John? This is Jess. I'm the host of the Unpack Mindset. So where do we start here? This is my first live stream, so I'm going to wing it here a little bit, right?
Oh man,
I did 8 years in the Marine Corps and retired as a corrections officer here in the state. And yeah, man, I'm here to share some thoughts and talk about what's going on in California. So let's run it, right?
Right. The state is what we're doing over here, man. And don't even sweat it. I mean, the live broadcast isn't nothing. Trust me. You know, it's all good. And I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much for endearing me with your presence today, man. I really do respect you and the stuff that you're doing. I've listened to you before, and you know, I like your perspective, and I think that that'll make a great show for today, man. So today we're just kind of moving. If I can jump into a couple of things that you said, you know, you did say that you served in the military, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Marine Corps. Marine Corps for 8 years. You know, good. It was a good run. You know, fell in love and then went to go work for the state. Yeah, man. You know, did a lot of traveling. You know, met a lot of people. Went to a lot of different places, and you know, I learned a lot. You know, learned a lot from people, interactions, and it was good, man. And, you know, it was a positive experience. Promoted, you know, like I said, you know, it wasn't perfect. There was a lot of good things and bad things, you know, but it's just like that with anything, right?
Most definitely, man.
Yeah. You know, but it kind of put me in a projection, right? It set my projection in life. It gave me a lot of valuable tools that I could use on the outside, you know. Yeah. A lot of people have different perspectives about the Marine Corps or the military in general, but there's a lot of good takeaways. There's a lot of good takeaways that I utilized.
Man, that's awesome, man. You know, and I appreciate you. Thank you for your service, man. You know, I always respect our military vets and, you know, anybody who's willing to step up to service, man. I mean, I have great respect for those people and you, man. Thank you very much. So check this out, man. I got to bring this up because these are some of the drama situations that I'm watching. The governor's race. Okay. Like the governor's race, man, I did a little bit of that, you know, where I talked about all the candidates with the exception of the Republicans. Not that I'm against the Republicans. I just think that both of the Republicans, Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton, they were both pretty much saying the exact same thing. So there wasn't really a distinction. There was a couple of things about them from their history and their past that I probably could have said, but you know, it really wasn't that big of a deal. We just had so many Democrats in the race that were all across the gambit of legacy and history and things that they've done. So I thought that was a little bit more of an interesting story, and that's why I chose to focus on that. But one of the things that I thought was most interesting, now that we're getting down to the filtering in of all the remaining votes, whenever the hell that's supposed to happen, I'm really tripping out that we have now Becerra and Hilton and Steyer are all in the top 3, and they're close to one another. Steyer's a little bit further off, but it's Hilton and Becerra currently. What's your take on this? as far as like the controversy of how long this is taking, what are we doing? And, then we'll get into like maybe the candidates themselves. Cause I think the top two, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I think the top two is going to be Becerra and Hilton. So what do you think about that as far as how long this shit's taking?
Well, it's unacceptable. I feel like you know the the totals, right? The amount of ballots that came in, they should have been counted by now, and there's a lot of nuances, man. I really don't understand why it's taking so long. It almost feels like they're moving the goalpost, man. That ball's gonna go over, and they're just kind of moving it back. But like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? So I don't want to just say, oh, this is what's going on, and paint a certain picture, because I kind of like to focus on the pros and cons, right? So for me, the fact that it's taking long is a red flag. It's not good. It's not good. And I know it doesn't sit well with anybody, right? It doesn't sit well with anybody. We're talking about California here. There's countries there's third world countries that have done votes quicker than us, and it's just one of those things that it's a bad look, bro. Honestly, I really feel like it's a bad look. It's a bad look on the current administration,
Definitely. Definitely. And that's kind of a problem here, because like you said, I'm a firm believer in is this a bad election? Because now we kind of water the seeds of doubt when we have these numbers come in and we're taking so long to count. And like you alluded to this, other places, other countries that are considered third world countries have voter elections that are done quicker than ours. So it casts the doubt where there probably shouldn't be a doubt. But here in the state of California, tell me if we're doing something weird here, because when we're watching people up in San Francisco and Oakland paying for people to sign registration cards to vote, right? Like, that's in front of us, and I'm like,
that's one of those things. And then apparently we're using old registration lists. So I mean, it's one of those things where is it going to be a hard one this first time around? I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this before. I feel like California is coming together, though. I'm seeing a surge of people that are coming together, and they have these non-negotiables, right? Like when it comes to the cost of living in California, and everyone has these great ideas, but I view a lot of these ideas like healthcare reform and all these things. In theory, they're good, but when you start overtaxing the citizens and life becomes unbearable, I've done good for myself, but I'm not so blind to the fact that I can't see other people suffering. I feel it. I go out there and I know what the cost of, how far I can get away with my dollar. But for some people, it's if their car breaks down or if something happens, some type of incident happens, and they're down $1,000, that could be the difference between paying rent, making your house payment, or paying a bill. And that's something that we all share in common. That's something that we all live in that world. And I'm happy to talk to you about this, because it shows the people, right? It lets them know, hey, you can have disagreements, and you could still, you could be a Democrat, you could be a Republican, you can be conservative, you can be liberal, but at the end of the day, the bills still have to be paid, the rent still has to be made. And I know I'm kind of deviating from what we started talking about, but yeah, that's kind of where
you're right. You're right. You're right in the sense that, we at what point, and for me, at what point does, all of the things that we're self-inflicting with, it's because of the politicians that we're electing. You know, when we do things not within our own self-interest, not knowing that, hey, you know what, just because I'm voting for a Democrat because I'm Democrat and I'm just going to vote for a Democrat doesn't mean that that person is going to do what's in my best interest. Because if I'm struggling to make rent and I gotta pay, you know, I'm worried about my brakes going out because that's going to be a hit on me, and that's going to determine whether I can pay my water bill and so forth. You know, I'm kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, to do those kinds of things. And yet I'm voting for somebody who's outwardly saying that I'm going to tax you more because we need to provide these services that maybe we don't need to provide. But yet, you know, how much pressure can I take? But see, I think this is why a lot of these things are self-inflicted to us. And I'm a Democrat. I'm outward about that. I'm a Democrat, but I am just well, you know, I mean, and being a Democrat, it's so hard to follow what we're saying because it almost feels like the politicians that we're electing aren't listening to us anymore. And I can prove that by saying this. There was a poll that was put out amongst Democrats, registered Democrats, if whether or not they agreed with voter ID. And 73% of Democrats said yes, they're in favor of voter ID. But when you talk to the politicians and you hear all the politicians that we have elected, they're saying the opposite. They're saying that voter ID is not a way to go because it's not what we want to do. It's Jim Crow 2.0. And it's like 73% of us are saying, yes, that's right. That's basically the majority of the party. But yet we're listening to the 27% is the one is running the rest of us. So I don't understand how the small group is running the larger group and doing what we don't want. But this is why we have so many problems, because they're not listening to us. So we think already we're sowing the seeds of this conspiracies. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist either, but it does cause doubt on whether or not the politicians are listening to us. So how do we know that they're the ones who keep telling us there's no voter fraud, but yet we keep seeing a lot of shit that don't look right. Like it doesn't feel right, don't smell right, don't look right. What is that saying? If it quacks, you know, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, right? It looks like a duck, it's a duck. And I don't know, things don't look good.
Right. You know, it's you know, when you're young, you know, I was a former Democrat, you know, and when I was younger, I would hear politicians make a lot of promises and, you know, expanding programs and different social engineering ideas, if that's what you want to call it. You know, like, you know, Xavier Becerra, right? He's got a lot of government experience, doesn't he? And he's you know, Congress, and then he was the California Attorney General?
Yes.
Right. And then HHS secretary, if I got that right. And then he has strong institutional Democratic support from my understanding. And there's, I don't know if this surge that he's been getting is legitimate or not. But my take on Becerra, he's kind of a status quo politician, right? Now, you know, now that I'm older, I recognize patterns, you know, and he's kind of a legacy status quo, you know, Newsom-esque politician. And it for me, I look at it like when you have a politician that's a status quo politician that's just repeating the same stuff that's been getting repeated for the last 16 years.
Yeah.
And then you got another politician like Steve Hilton. He's coming out with the affordability thing, right? And he's coming out with an overhaul.
Yeah.
This thing needs an overhaul because the engine's had a check engine light for decades now. So it's kind of, it boils down for me. It's a common sense, pragmatic take. You know, now that I'm older, you know I don't look so old, but I'm older. And I kind of I look at it like this. If I have a, if I have a recall on one of my vehicles, right?
Yeah.
And the check engine light's on, and I go online and I look for recalls, and I take it to the dealership, and they remove all those parts of the engine that need to be recalled, and then they replace them with the same stuff that was recalled.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on. I would have something to say. I would be like, no, dude, this stuff is going to break down again. I need better stuff.
Right.
So
I mean, that's a great point, though. I mean, because what is the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome. So,
right.
I can agree with that. And that's something that I think that because we as Democrats have basically run the state of California strongly and over majority wise for the last 16 years, when I open my door, I don't, my America is different than other people's America, because when I open that door, I don't live where well, I don't live exactly where Gavin Newsom. I live 2 counties down, or a county away from where Gavin Newsom lives, and I've been in that county. I've run through that county, and let me tell you something. Those homes are, I mean, something that you see out of, MTV Cribs, and you sit there going, these houses are amazing, but to live in that kind of area, that's why I say when he opens his door, that's not the same, that's not the same California that I open my door to, because I'm the one watching a person who's a little bit strung out on drugs passing by pushing his cart, and I'm sure Newsom isn't seeing that, and I'm sure that a lot of those politicians that we're all talking about, they don't see that when they open their door. So we've run this state strongly for the last 16 years, and yet I agree with you. We are not doing a good job, because all I have to do is walk down the street or walk to my local grocery store or drive to the theater. And let me tell you something, I see things that are terrible. You see people on drugs, you see people having a hard time. How do we get away from that? How do these politicians, like you said, Becerra, and I want to say this thing about Becerra. He has a long history. I want to say close to 30 years in the politics. And he always wants to talk about his experience, but he never wants to talk about his legacy. His legacy is in question, for the simple reason is, yes, you've been there for 30 years. And you said, you quoted a lot of places that he did work.
Right. And I'm not going to let Hilton off the hook either. Hilton, I believe he was a chief strategist, right? In the UK, right?
Yes.
So, it's like, it's one of those things. Is this going to be a bait and switch? Is he going to, it's one of those things where it's like, oh man, I know that he was a conservative in the UK. And then he went over to go work with Fox, right? And
yep.
Then but I'm starting to lean towards Hilton. At first I was looking at Chad, but I feel like his the optics when it comes to Chad, it's real linear. It's real linear. I'm kind of looking at somebody who can speak for Californians and relate to Californians. And I'm not saying that Chad is a bad candidate. It's just from the optics, from what I've seen and from what I've heard him speak. He makes a lot of great points, but at the same time, is everybody going to buy in, right? Is everybody going to be like convinced that he's going to be the one that represents them?
But part of the problem here is this also. You have people. I was speaking to a 72-year-old woman, and she was asking me about. We got into the politic conversation, and she was asking me, well, what do you think of certain people? And I said, I'm still undecided about the governor's. Well, I was still at the time I was undecided about the governor's race. And she was asking me about, like, for treasurer and school superintendent, or the school, person, the treasury, so forth. And so I told her, who I thought was best at some things. And then she asked me, well, why? And I said, because of experience and so forth. And then she asked me this question. She says, you're a Democrat like I am. Can I vote for a Republican? And I said, well, yes. And then she goes, even though I'm registered as a Democrat?
Yeah.
And I was amazed asking that question at 72 and has been voting for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't know that? And I was just like, wow, this is a 72-year-old woman who doesn't know that she can vote, not necessarily always for her party, that she can vote for whoever's best. And
Right.
I was just kind of amazed with that, man. That's crazy. You know,
And I'm happy that we're having this discussion, because I feel like a lot of people tend to think that we're completely opposed. You know, we're completely you know, we can't live together. You know, we can't. And man, you know, it's I hate to get philosophical about this. You know, there's more to John.
well, do you
that-
think it's by design?
What's that?
You think that's by design that they?
Oh yeah, of course. It's propaganda, man. It's like, you know, you have individuals that are calling MAGA, you know, cults, and conservatives are low IQ individuals,
Yeah.
and then you have your conservatives calling liberals libtards, and you know, this is just for you know, just to describe what's going on, and you know, I guess in the U.S., you know, you got too many. I want to say we're throwing too many jabs at each other, and then we can't come to the table, and we can't understand. I feel like you know, that we've lost that
Right.
that part of, you know, how are you supposed to get somebody to understand your views, or get somebody to understand why you're not going to vote for somebody if you're constantly throwing verbal jabs at each other. It's not going to happen. It's just going to keep that division open, and nobody's going to want to talk to each other. But I really do feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to California, man. I really do, you know, because I don't hate Democrats. I don't hate liberals. You know, I feel like there's good in diversity, right? Like there's good in having people with different opinions and coming together. I feel like here in California, though, we're getting hustled so much, man. We're getting screwed so much, and I feel like it's making us all come together and say, hey, wait a minute.
Yes.
We're not so different. We're not so different, man. We're all, at the end of the day, we're footing the bill. At the end of the day, we're footing the bill. And if we're too busy calling each other names and trying to just get at each other with things that don't make any sense, in my opinion, it's like you got to look at the platforms, right? Right. We're having these conversations because we want to discuss platforms. You know, I feel like when it comes to Democrats, and I'm not trying to talk down. I'm just talking about today's current political climate.
Right.
The platforms are just mirrors of Gavin Newsom's policies. That's all they are. And it's something that we're trying to get away from. It really is. What it really is, in my opinion, it's an expansionist policy. It's a new group to, you know, stop homelessness. It's a new NGO to stop drug addiction, and it's a new expansion of a different program, and we're footing the bill. We're footing the bill every time. Every time. We're not really creating jobs. We're not really. It just seems like it's a downward spiral, man, for this administration. It really does. Whether or not they're successful in this election, I do feel like at some point, you know, you can. I mean, like, take this whole redistricting thing, you know, with what's going on. Okay, at some point, everyone's going to hate you. It don't matter how much you redistrict. Right. At some point, the representatives in those districts are going to have to either get in line with all the people in their district,
right,
or they're going to get voted out. It doesn't matter. Right now, it's looking like, man, it's looking like things are changing. Things are changing in California.
We're running out. We're squeezing it so tight that it doesn't even matter at this point. you know, even though they want to squeeze this, and this is something I don't understand about that, and maybe you can help me understand. You know, when we say, we being Democrats are saying that what's happening over in Texas is an abomination. It is not something that should be done. It's terrible. It's shady. It's bullshit. It's backdoor, you know, politicking and, you know, that glad handing to one another. And then we say in the same breath, well, we're gonna do it too.
Mm.
Like, what if that's shady, what Texas did, then it's shady what we've done. I don't get that. How do we not see that if somebody goes and does something that we deem as bad because we took the moral high ground on this and said it's bad, and then we go and do the same damn thing, well, doesn't that make us bad too? I mean, aren't we supposed to be the party that doesn't do that kind of thing, but yet we go run out and I don't understand.
Right, right. I don't understand the whole catalyst behind the redistricting to Texas. I briefly read that it was a lawsuit or something that sparked it,
Mhm.
and then it had nothing to do with initially drawing the
You're right.
lines.
You're right. You're
Right.
absolutely right. It
But I
had
heard it was a lawsuit that sparked it, and then it sort of played in their favor. Well, it did play in their favor, and then California ran with it. They saw that, and then they ran with it too. I mean, look, it's politics, right? I mean, and I'm not saying that it's okay or anything like that, but
you got to call it what it is, right?
yeah, you got to call it what it is. And the redistricting, I feel like, was one of those things that was going under the radar for years,
Yeah.
probably decades, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So
gerrymandering has been around forever, and you know, both sides have done it. But you know, we have to sit here and call it, you know, we got to call bullshit. And you know, Sharon, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate your comment. Yeah, two wrongs don't make a right. You know, I mean, how many times
Right.
have we ever been told that when we were kids? Hey, you know, pendejo, don't do it. It's usually the second guy that gets caught, right? Well, you know, that's what's happening in California. We're the second guy doing this pendejada, but you know, you got to call the fuckery for what it is. It's bullshit. And you know, how do I vote for a guy who's in favor of this kind of shit? Well, if they're
Right.
doing something bad, déjalos, right? Let them do what they're gonna do, because we're gonna stand straight here in California. And the first thing we do is veer off to the, you know, hacer los pendejadas como ellos. You know, we're doing the same bullshit they're doing, but yeah, we're saying they're wrong for doing it. Oh fuck, man. Seriously,
Yeah,
that's
it's wild. It is wild, man. You know, but you know, it's like I said. I don't feel the need to, like, when it comes to politics. I don't have control issues, man. Like, I don't feel like I'm the type of person that has to be like, oh, you know, you got to do this and you got to do that. I'm a conservative, and these are my values, and you can't. You know, I don't have control issues like that, man. You know,
right.
hey, I believe in free will. I believe that we all have freedoms to choose, man, and we can be an asshole on both sides. You know, you can be an idiot on both sides. And I love California, man. I love being here. I love the people, man. I love the diversity, man. It's you know, it's you can go surfing, man. You can go to the mountains. You can catch the snow. You can do all this stuff, man. It's a beautiful state. It's just that I feel that it's important to mention that it's important that we come together, man, and we deal with the non-negotiables. And I feel like the kitchen math, that's what it comes down to, kitchen math. You know, you got all these politicians talking about like Tom Steyer, right? Am I saying his name right?
Steyer.
Tom Steyer, you know, he's got like these strong climate credentials, and you know, he has this massive funding ability, right? And I hear that he's got strong union support, and dude's got money, man. Like, he's focused on, but so apparently he's focused on affordability, but he's trying to push all these other things.
Right.
So to me, he's like a super Newsom, you know, he's like a super Newsom.
Yeah.
And Becerra is like a Newsom hardliner.
Yep.
You know, you got a super Newsom, and then you got one that's just a notch down. That's a Newsom hardliner. Right. And it's like Now keep in mind, I don't want people to make the connection between, you don't like Newsom, so you don't like me. You don't like me, or you don't like our people, or anything like that. No, I'm not talking like that. I don't like the kitchen math. The kitchen math is when you bring home the groceries and you look at the bill and you're just sitting there and you're sitting down in your kitchen and you're like at the table nodding your head like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is something that we all can relate to.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is something that we can relate to, or when the utility bills come in and you're like, why am I paying $200 extra?
Damn it.
The room. Why am I paying this dude solar if I don't have solar? It's one of those things, man, where we're all starting to realize this younger generation is bright, man. They're smart. They're really smart, and they're going to be the ones that bring California into a better state, into a better direction. I believe in them. They're not afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid to ask the hard questions too. Right. And that's why I believe, I have faith in the younger generation. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm always getting kicked around by these younger people. Can you believe what he said? I can't believe it. He called me this and called me that. It's not that. It's man. I think the most sincerest form of compassion is sometimes by just blurting it out and saying it.
Right.
And just saying it. It's not that there's hate behind it or just ill will.
No, I completely agree with you on that. And let me move it a little bit when I say this, because Sharon makes a great point, and because I do the same thing. I vote for a person, and it doesn't matter that I'm connected to the Democratic Party. I close my eyes and I listen to what they're saying. Now, if I catch myself nodding my head in agreement, then that's the person I'm going to listen to the most. But when I hear people do the little backhanded comments like, that person is what did he say? Becerra said that because Trump had endorsed Hilton, that was his daddy. And I'm like, and for me, I just thought, serio, really? That's where you're going to go with this? Te miras como baboso when you do stuff like that, because you're supposed to be somebody of integrity, but yet you're going to throw, because think about it, you don't want nobody to tell you who's your daddy, right? Because the raza hangs out with that, right? But how are we hanging out with this vato saying things like that? So, I get into the like, hey, man, I'm proud to be Mexicano, but I'm not going to vote for you just because your last name is Becerra. I'm not going to vote for you por eso. I'm going to vote for what you're saying. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to listen to you. And you know what I hear? And what I hear out of Democrats is this bullshit rallying cry about fight Trump, fight Trump. Vato, that he's not going to be there forever. So what are you going to do when this vato's gone? Are you going to, what? Now you're just going to chill and, play Candy Crush? What are you going to do? Because I'm not hearing how you're going to fix this. Trump doesn't run California. We do. And you know what? We're not doing a good job. So how in the hell are we going to fix this? And that's what I want to hear. But all I hear is fight Trump. I'm not afraid to fight Trump. Bro, that's not my rallying cry. I want to hear how you're going to fix the vatos that are walking down the street stealing, copper out of the lining. So this way we can have lights. So there won't be, all the drama that's happening, people stabbing one another. Hell, a kid just got shot at graduation. Things are happening in the world, and they're happening here in California, one of the greatest states there is. And yet we look like some of the worst states. And I'm not killing the worst states, but it's like, you're the worst state for a reason. And it's lack of leadership. So what the hell's happening to us? Lack of leadership here in California. So that's how I feel about that. But let me push this to you. If you had to say something good as a Republican, you say something good about Becerra, I'll say something good about Steve Hilton. You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, Becerra, he does have a lot of experience, right? And he's a uniter, right, when it comes to the Democratic Party. And I mean, that's pretty much how I feel. Like, as far as Tom sire, you know, if I was a Democrat, I would be like, hey, he's got strong climate credentials, you know, and he's got massive self-funding. You know, he can bring in a lot of money, you know, and he's got a progressive base. He's got he supports the unions, you know, they're there, and his focus is on affordability and corporate accountability. But I just can't, like, yeah, you know, I'm trying to think that way, but I'm not buying it because it's a pattern, and it's
let
and
me
it's
let me put it this
billionaire optics. I'm going to call it billionaire optics.
okay. If I had to say something good about Hilton, Steve Hilton, I'm going to say this: he's new, and he's new to politics, and has fresh, new ideals that don't align with the current administration and, you know, people that are currently running as the Democratic Party, because all we talk about is taxes, 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 and he's talking about going after what we all know is fraudulent things that are happening. But that's not what I hear any of my people say. But he has fresh new ideals. Now think about it. We voted Barack Obama in as president because of his promise of fresh new ideals. If that's the thing I say positive about Hilton, that's what I'm going to say. Even Chad Bianco, they align in that regards, that they both are talking about a positive new approach to fix things that are broken in California, and I can agree with that. So let me flip it now again. If you had to say one thing bad about your candidates that's maybe not favorable, tell me what you think that is for the Republicans.
He's going to have a hard path, man. He's going to have a hard path. So it's going to be one of those things. You know, he's going to be criticized if he keeps hitting brick walls. He's going to be criticized. So because you said, you know, I'm kind of piggybacking on what you said because he's new. You know, so he's going to get a lot of pushback. A lot of, you know, you got to ask yourself: is he being too idealistic? You know, is he throwing out all these buzzwords like, you know, is it going to work that way? Because it might, you know, I feel, to be realistic, I feel like his first 2 years are going to be brutal, man. Are just going to be brutal, because I feel like
Obama's, they were brutal his first 2 years.
Right. I feel like it's going to be a rough start, man, because he also, from what I'm understanding, he has Trump ties too. You know, Trump ties, and they may, you know, is he going to be completely aligned, you know, with him? So there's some nuance there, you know. There's some stuff that you're like, hey man, shoot, is this gonna hurt? Backfire, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But you know, the fear of change, the fear of not trying to fix, that's and going on with this check engine light. Yeah. And you keep, you know, at what point are you going to keep driving it till you're left stranded, right? So you gotta, I'm just keeping it simple, stupid here, right? So yeah. It's we can keep driving with that check engine light, or we can just or we can give it a shot, right? Give it a shot.
Yeah, you got to.
I told you this. You know, like the conflict in the Middle East right now. You know, I knew right away when he brought in certain people that this was going to backfire. Right. So he's gonna run into a lot of Democratic institutions that were loyalists to Gavin Newsom, that were loyalists to, and you know how it works, dude. You were a union rep. You know, Gavin Newsom shoots that memo down, and everybody falls in line. So it's you know how that works.
It would be the same way that they feel about Trump and his cronies, right? He says no, and then all Republicans say no. Yeah, so I get that. You're right. I get that.
You know, it's one of those things where, yeah, you know, this I feel like we should give it a shot, man, because I hate to sound old when I'm talking to these youngsters, because they kind of disregard what you're saying, you know. But I let me try to convey this in the simplest way that I could. Man, growing up in California in the 70s and 80s was beautiful, man. The beaches didn't have any trash. You know, you can go in the river and you didn't have any logs floating down it, you know, human logs.
Yeah.
And you know, people picked up their trash and you know, California was so beautiful, man. You can go down Sunset, you know, the streets were cleaned. You know, yeah, there was homelessness, but it was managed, you know, it was managed. And, you know, it's not about not wanting to help people that need the help. It's not about that. It's about having enough compassion and enough integrity to deliver that help and get these people off the street, whether they want it or not sometimes, because for me it's just sad. You know, it is sad. You know,
Right.
I don't live, it's sad. It's sad to watch people on the streets, but I feel like of the policies that we have in place right now are just enabling people.
Yeah.
They're enabling people to stay on the streets. No, there's no change. There's no change here.
You're right. And I mean, and you hit everybody right in the face when you just told them, do we continue to run with the check engine light on? Because you know what? Who hasn't had that car or currently have the car with the check engine light on? So you hit everybody in the face with that one, man.
Hey, dude, I drive an Audi, so I'm telling you, I'm used to having check engine lights.
And Big Dog, here's what I'm going to tell you, man. We are old, okay? Because according to some people, and this is an oldie, we were born in the 1900s. So when people tell me that now, I'm like, fucker, you know.
You know, I don't. You know, it's weird because I don't feel like, you know, I used to always be like, oh man, how old are you? 50 years old? Oh damn! Like you're almost gonna die. You know, which apostle did you sit with in class? You know, it's almost it's almost like they just
you money, huh?
right. But you know, I really love this younger generation, man. I embrace them. I embrace their differences, man. And you know, I feel like they're more pragmatic. They're more serious about what's going on, man, because they really see the damage.
Yeah.
They see the damage, man. And
well, Gen X, baby, that's what we are, man. And Sharon, nobody's trying to make you feel old, girl. We are all in that same boat. All right. We're all in the same boat together. All right.
And the bones are creaking, man. We're all in that club.
Things hurt that I didn't realize I had.
Oh man. Tell me about it.
But so the things that I would say about my party, Tom Steyer sounds to me like a keynote speaker at a conference.
Mm-hmm.
He says everything that he thinks I want to hear, but I'm skeptical about a guy who's made his money in hedge funds, you know, and oil, and he's talking about fighting those people. He's talking about
right
them paying their share. Well, that bro, you in that circle. And then, you know, a person who's in the state of California that is earning some of the most money from these detention centers in which he invested in, which were private prisons, and he has a federal contract for his private prisons that he owns that have those prisons they use for the detainees for the ICE raids. So, you know, you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's kind of like the fox in the hen house kind of way is how I feel about him, because I'm like, bro, you talking about fighting all that. Did you have a come to Jesus moment or something? I mean,
right.
All of a sudden you're changing. Oh, billionaires need to pay their fair share. Bro, you a billionaire and you taking every tax loophole there is. But yet I don't hear you talking about closing those loopholes. I just hear you saying everybody has to pay their fair share. So that's my first negative about him. But if I go to Becerra, which I find, if I have to say it, and you said it best, look, his long service career in politics is long, but it's his legacy that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be truthful and call it out for what it is. If we're so concerned about separating families and we're so concerned about people that are getting caught up in the ICE situation, undocumented people and so forth. If we're so concerned about that, here's a guy who lost 79,000 children and doesn't know where they are. This is a guy who, lost these kids under his watch, under the Biden administration. And yet we're supposed to be proud of this. And yet, so how concerned are we when we have a person who is not accountable for those kids? I mean, these are kids, man. I mean, and they were found, like 20-some thousand of them have been found to date. And we found them in places that they shouldn't be, being trafficked, being used for in places like factories and so forth, doing child labor. And his response was, well, some of them may needed a job. And I'm like, bro, what? Seriously? That's going to be your response? Not, man, we screwed that up. Like, we fucked it up. The buck stops with me. But not
Right.
everybody else. It's CPS, it's somebody else. But that's some of my problems with Becerra, is that he is not accountable for anything. And it's like, at the same time, he runs away from it. Like that interview he did. I don't know if you saw that interview. He did this interview where he was basically telling the reporter, hey, we're going to have a good interview here, right? And I was kind of like, why are you telling this chick that? And he got completely decimated in this interview. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring this interview up because I think that it's something that is noteworthy. And I want to bring it up because I think people need to see it. All right. So let me bring that up here. If you give me a second. Like I said, I'm not savvy here with this. All right. I'm going to bring this up. Now check out this interview. I'm going to play it. It'll be a little bit long, but let's go ahead and sit through it and then we'll pick it apart. All right, here we go.
This is the start of our interview with Javier Becerra in Highland Park.
By the way, this is a profile piece. This is not a gotcha piece, right?
Well, look, I think these questions are fair. It's in order to learn about you as a candidate.
So long it's about the profile.
I don't know how you define profile, but I'd like to begin the interview.
The way I describe profile is you talk about all the things that I've done, things I want to do, and along with some tough questions, but not only tough questions.
Profile piece or not, KTLA had tough questions for Javier Becerra, the nation's former Health and Human Services Secretary and California's former Attorney General, now running for governor. I want to begin with homelessness. We could not find a plan on your website when it comes to tackling this issue. So can you explain what your plan is?
Making sure we address the issue of accountability. If we're sending billions of dollars into cities and counties from the state, taxpayer dollars, we have to make sure that people see the results.
So who is delivering results? In your mind, what city in California is doing this right?
I don't know if there's any city I would tell you that's doing it right. There are cities that are trying to do it, but when you still see that there are people living on the streets, you wonder, what can we do better?
Let's move on to gas tax. Mayor Matt Mahan is saying he'd suspend it.
So did Mr. Mahan explain how we would try to fix those roads and bridges if he's going to suspend the gas tax?
But experts we spoke to this morning say California is on the verge of a gas crisis because the state's largest refineries are shutting their operations. What is your plan to bring down gas prices? Would you try and get any of these oil refineries to reopen?
Those refineries do something very important. They make it possible for California drivers to have access to the gasoline we need.
What are you doing here? Are you taking away regulations? Are you asking them to come back?
I want to work with them so they can continue to provide the gasoline.
Want to move on to affordability.
I bet you couldn't explain why. And that's why I'm saying it's time to freeze the rates right now. Let's get behind the curtain, figure out why. And if the companies have a great explanation, we'll accept it. I think people will accept that.
Want to move on to your time as HHS secretary. Some critics called you the, quote, invisible secretaries.
Came in during the height of the COVID pandemic when we left, after 700 million COVID vaccine shots in the arms of Americans. Never once people having to pay a penny so they could be safe and not die.
During your time as HHS secretary, a New York Times investigation found the health department couldn't find some 85,000 children it had released.
That's not accurate. What you just read is not accurate. First, that's what I'll say, because it was never the case that we could not find kids. You're essentially, I don't know if you got those talking points from Donald Trump,
It's from a New York Times article.
That's not what the New York Times article said. The New York Times said that
If you read that from the New York Times, man, it says exactly that. So I just want to move forward. I just wanted to point that out moving forward.
individuals, the children and their sponsors did not respond to calls. They didn't say we couldn't find kids.
Working overnight in slaughterhouses, replacing roofs, operating machineries in factories, children as young as 14 years old.
That part occurred after these children had left the care of Department of Health and Human Services.
To let these children go into those individual sponsors in their responsibility.
Some of these kids, probably because they needed to earn some money, started working in places that were very exploitive.
Yeah, I want to stop it there because if you notice, he takes no accountability in the things that were there, and that's the problem that I have with Becerra. And it's like, I was hoping that he wouldn't be the leader in this because, if I can give you a quick story, there was a gentleman that I was talking to. And again, I talk politics a lot out here in Northern California. And this gentleman was telling me, oh, wow. So, you're Democrat. I'm Democratic also, blah, blah, blah. So you're voting for Becerra. And I was like, I don't know who I'm voting for. He goes, oh, you're not, I'm surprised. And I said, why are you surprised? And he said, well, you're Hispanic, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh, I just thought that you would vote for Becerra because, he's Hispanic. But see, that's the narrative that's pushed out to us. Like, if I'm Democrat, I can only vote for Democrat like the 72-year-old woman thought. And if I'm Hispanic, I can only vote for the Hispanic guy. It's like, holy shit. Why do we do this to our people? Why do we make our people feel that way? Because other Hispanic people or other Latinos are going to sit there and look at me and go, if you didn't vote for Becerra, I'm going to call you names now. And I'm just like, you're a coconut. You're not a true Mexicano. And it's like, well, first off, bro, I'm American. Okay. My parents were American. It's like, you don't understand. My great grandmother was born in Pomona, California. You have to understand some things, I have a lineage here. At what point do I become American that I can vote for whoever I want and not based on my skin color or my Spanish surname? At what point does that become where I'm an American and I'm free to do what I want? I mean, look, when I go to Mexico, I'm not Mexican. I'm American. Okay. I'm here in America. I'm American. Right. I don't understand that. But just because somebody has a Spanish surname like me, or the skin color like me, doesn't mean I'm going to vote for him for that reason, or the fact that he's a Democrat. I want to vote for the guy that I can or guy or girl that I can vote for, that when I listen to them talk, I shake my head in agreements with. And I'll be honest with you, this is my negative about Becerra from my point of view and Steyer. So, I do appreciate you, indulging me in that little game. And Sharon, I swear you come out with these, you come out with some really great thought process there. No, he never answered the damn question. What the hell are we doing?
Yeah, it's it comes down to, watching that video and stuff. It's, it comes down to like, the same blueprint, right? It's the same blueprint. It's the same climate mandates, same regulatory framework, same homeless model, same expansion of state agencies, and there's no reform, there's no structural affordability plan, and it's essentially what you're getting is different faces, but the same blueprint. And that's my biggest problem with this administration, and it's just all you're doing, man, is you're just changing the color of the Band-Aid, and it's gonna rip open. It's not one of those things where
100%,
it deserves an overhaul, and I feel like man, just California just has so much potential, right? There's so much going on here, and it's the framing, if we're going to break it down, like say with Hilton, he has apparently a full economic tax plan, right? And I want to hear that. I don't want to hear about, bringing in more climate specialists,
right?
And some nuanced stuff that I can't directly connect to my kitchen math, and I want to hear about regulation. I want to hear about housing. I want to hear about how you plan on putting more money back into that kitchen math, back into the wallets of the taxpayers. And as far as Bianco, his law and order stance, that's kind of where it kind of just stopped for me. It kind of just, yeah. And then I'm a law and order guy. I'm a law and order guy, pro Second Amendment, but no, it just, for me, I'm starting to feel like, it's an optics thing.
That's the change we need. I think that, I mean, you're hitting it on the head when I think about it that way. You're hitting it on the head for the simple reason is that when I hear the same old rhetoric on my side, which is, look, I'm a Democrat, man, and I'm hearing my party say the same shit, and I look at what we do. Like, we just had this, this election here up in Northern California where people are voting against their best interests and don't even understand how they're voting. Like, a lot of people around here are talking about how they can't afford things. Everything's, the affordability. I can't afford this and I can't afford that. But yet we passed two measures out here that were taxing us more for the transit, the public transit, and another bond. And so for the next 15 to 20 years, we're going to be taxed like a total of 2 point some percent. And that's for the next 20 years. But yet we're talking about how we can't afford things. So why would we vote to tax ourselves more if we can't afford anything? I mean, if we're on the verge, and you pointed this out, man, and this is perfect how you said it. There's only Americans that can afford a $500 emergency. And that number is high. I don't remember the statistic, but I know it's high. Like, people can't afford a $500 emergency. So how the hell are we taxing an extra, 2% on our wages for the next 20 years if we can't afford what the hell's going on right now?
Right. And, it's the cost of living.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, look at the cost of living, right? The COLA that people receive. It's so far behind. It's so far behind the actual cost of living in a real world, right? It's so far behind, and it's almost like this administration is operating under an era where they can say what they want and do what they want, and they think that nobody really sees what's going on. I don't know why. I don't know why.
People are voting blindly. That's it.
But they're operating like that, and it's obvious. It's obvious that they're operating like that. I've just been noticing it. I mean, are we looking at a transition? Are we looking at a new era of politics, a new era of information, right? Of the way people access information. Yeah. The oil thing, man, I feel both parties are tied into the oil, though, brother. Like the Republicans are tied into the oil thing, the Democrats are tied into the oil thing. But the problem with the policies here in California is just the blueprint, man. It's the blueprint. You have so much overregulation. You have so many things. I used to have a sandblasting business, and before we started a project, we'd have to go through all these regulations, lead testing, asbestos testing, and all that's important. Don't get me wrong. But, when you're charging these, outrageous amounts just to get someone out there to go over there and touch the wall and put his finger up in the air and say, oh yeah, it's okay, it's good to go. Or, like it's just, once you do so many projects, you begin to realize, man, California is just
the insanity.
Way out of control, man. It's way out of control. We used to do these big projects, and they would send like 3 or 4 different people, and they're all friends, and they're all collecting, a couple $1,000s each for a $10,000-$15,000 project. And before you know it, you're just getting half of what you're asking for,
Right.
It's just it's an overly regulated state. There's things like that Hilton mentioned in the past in past interviews that I liked. There's a lot of bloat, right? There's a lot of bloat in California. I don't even think you need a fishing license, man. You should be able to go out and fish. Why do you need to pay for a fishing license? Really? There's a lot of things in California that just, you got to pay to go camping. Why? Why do you got to go pay to go camping? Shouldn't the, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answers for everything, but I do know that California is overregulated. It's way overregulated. I have friends that still operate their own businesses, and a buddy of mine was starting a new project, and I guess California added these new environmental certifications that they needed to get before they started this project. So they had to up the cost of the project after they agreed on it. But then the city came back and they said, hey, you know what? We need testing for this and testing for that. And so it bit into their original estimates.
Oh, wow.
So they had to go back and renegotiate the project. And it just set them back a couple months. And that's what they're talking about, like these fires in the Palisades. They're talking about how hard it is just to build, how hard it is just to move a project. So, it's one of those things, man, where it's got to stop. It's overly regulated. I do believe that there's a lot of bloat. All that money, man, can come back to us. There's things that we can cut that can come back to us.
Right. You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, that's part of our biggest thing here is that if we could lower the gas tax, that'll definitely just that alone would
the formula, right? The blend.
Yeah, it's killing us for the simple reason. And check this out. And to what you're saying, there's this graphic that was put up. Now, think about this. Needles, California is literally 4 miles away from Topac, Arizona. And the gas price in Needles, California, and this was actually a couple of months ago, it was $7.29 in Needles, California. And when you drove over 4 miles, it was $4.03 in Arizona. 4 miles, man. So how in the hell does that miraculously happen that California gas that's actually shipped to Arizona loses $2.50 in how much it cost when we're shipping it to Needles, California, which is just 4 miles away from that Arizona? How the hell do we have that change? See, that's part of the problem. People need to say, well, what's going on? And again, because we're Democrats, we just allow our politicians to raise the gas taxes. It's not the gas, it's the gas taxes that are kicking our ass. And that's part of the problem. Plus we have, and then you add the special blend, the winter and summer blends. What the fuck? Is our air quality that much better than Arizona and Texas and Nevada? I mean, is it that much better? Because I don't know, man. I don't feel like I'm breathing that much better, than I was when I went up to Laughlin to go hang out. I was breathing the same air. It felt just as fresh in the morning. What are we fucking doing? What are we doing?
Right. It's like Hilton says, he wants to make he coined it. What is it? California affordable or Califortable? I don't know if that's,
you got to be English to say that shit, right?
Califortable.
Oh, but
it's a good campaign to run on, right? It's a good.
Well, it makes my head pop, man. I'm not going to lie to you. Look, I'm a Democrat, and I will say right now, I voted not for anybody in the Democratic Party in this election, man. I was just so not happy with everybody that was up there, and everybody who started. Once you started that chant about fight Trump, man, my mind just turned off because I was like, that's not our rallying cry, man. We need to fix what's wrong with here. Why don't you tell me about what you need to do to fix California? And if that's going to be fight Donald Trump, then the policy.
Let me ask you a question though. Do you believe that that was the downfall of the Democratic Party, that they got hyper focused on going after Trump instead of governing the state that was failing?
It had a big part to do with it for me, because I'm going to tell you right now, the thing that showed me the most of where we're at. I was speaking to a young lady from Tennessee, and I had her on the show, and she was telling me after the show, John, I was really nervous about getting on with you because I thought I was going to talk to a Democrat that's just going to shut me down because she has conservative values. She's very religious and she has really strong conservative values. And even though we were talking, as you said, my man, as you said, we had a lot more in common than we didn't. But she thought she was going to be talking to the people that you see on TV. That's who she thought she was going to talk to. And she says, you're a Democrat? I said, yes, I'm a Democrat. I'm proud to be a Democrat, but I'm not proud of what my party is doing right now. And there's a lot of us, and I can show you there's a lot of us by just showing that 73% of the registered Democrats are in favor of voter ID. Okay. We're not the 27% that's fighting this. We are the 73% that's in favor of this. And we have to understand that, just because you're a Republican does not mean that, that we're completely diametrically opposed to one another, because I think we all agree on term limits, right? We agree on term limits. Mm-hmm. We agree that taxation should be as equal as it is per the law, right? If I'm paying 35% and a millionaire pays 35% and a billionaire pays 35%, I'm going to be honest with you. Sure, they're paying more when it comes down to the money aspect. And here's where you have to learn how to read shit, is they're paying the majority of all taxes, especially here in the state of California. I want to say they're paying something like 51 or 52% of all taxes being paid are paid by those people. We're not paying that. At least I'm not in that tax bracket, but
I'm hearing that Samsung and there's another two.
Don't tell me they're leaving too or some shit.
Big companies are leaving to Texas.
Yeah,
man, Texas is getting everybody, right?
I've been doing all that, man. Del Monte bailed. They closed down. I mean, Wells Fargo and In-N-Out Burger, which
are jobs, dude. Those are jobs.
But they're California-born companies.
Right.
They're leaving because it's Valero, the gas company. They took $1 billion hit. A gas company. Think about it. Gas company, oil companies are about making money. They rather spend $1 billion, I think it was $1.1 billion or $1.2 billion to leave California. That's what they gave California. And they said, okay, so if that's for us to leave, I'm good with it.
I that was my first job, In-N-Out, man.
Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Back in the 80s, I knew Rich Snyder, the president.
Wow.
Bob Williams. I knew all those guys, and I worked at the first In-N-Out, the one that was built in Baldwin Park. It was cool, man, because I used to be the first one to show up and get the In-N-Out ready.
Is that right?
And, well, no, but the reason I say it was cool was because Rich Snyder would pass by there.
Wow.
Every morning.
The owner.
Every morning, the owner. And he had this big old BMW, man. Was it a 700 series? I can't remember which one it was. It was the popular one in the 80s, Sir Mix-a-Lot, I think, had one back then. And he would just pull up, man. He would just pull up and he rolled down his tinted windows and he had this big old smile on his face. Hey, Garcia, how you doing? And I'm doing great. Hey, what's up, Rich? we used to go yearly. We used to, me and Rich Snyder, and we take that In-N-Out roach coach. I don't want to call it roach coach, but the traveling In-N-Out.
Uh-huh.
We'd go to Skid Row.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we'd open up shop for about 4 hours and just feed everybody.
Oh, wow.
Right before Christmas. And it was just a good time with that, man. It was very humble, man. Very humble dude. Very good guy.
Man, see, that's the great part about that. But that's why I try to tell people, look, if we're going to chase billionaires out of California, you realize that they're going to take their companies with them and all. But people don't even realize, like, when I hear Newsom say this weird thing, like, well, if they want to leave, go ahead and let them leave. That's not a problem. How is that not?
Yes, it is. It is.
Because look, they're not only are they taking the hundreds of millions of dollars that they're paying in taxes as a company, but they're also providing hundreds of jobs that are well-paying jobs that are also paying taxes. So when he takes 100 people or 200 or 300 people with him to another state, we lose all of that revenue, all of it. So right. How the hell is that not bad? Look what's happening in New York. the governor of New York was saying, I believe Kathy Hochul is her name. She said, hey, if the billionaires want to leave, take the train. Go ahead. But now she's all saying, oh, man, if the billionaires that are still here, if they'd go to Florida and bring those guys back, we'd greatly appreciate it. Well, pendeja, you chased them. You chased them off. So there goes your money. There goes your money. It's a bad situation. But, I mean, this is a great topic. But, let me jump into this next topic, bro. I want to get your reaction to this thing that's happening currently. There are, as you know, as a Marine, as you know, it is our 250th anniversary of the United States birth. And we are going to be celebrating that this 4th of July. I read just recently that there are multiple cities in the state of California, as well as other places, that are choosing not to celebrate the 4th of July for the simple reason is that they are they're canceling the Independence Day events because they feel that the state of California is not in a place where it should be because of the picking up migrants, undocumented migrants. And they said that because of those things, that it's hurting the community and that they're not going to celebrate that. I don't know, man. I find that offensive. I find that I did not serve in the military. My brother did as a Marine also. My family is proud of that. I'm proud of the service members, and I consider myself a patriot in this respect. I am not loyal to a person or a party. I am loyal to the Constitution of the United States. That is my loyalty. And to see people say such terrible things about us as the United States and they won't celebrate this independence. Look, you can do what you want to do, but when I see cities who participate in the capitalism in which we've created and yet say that they are not going to honor our veterans who died and have served our country, and they're not going to honor those people, I find that's I'm at a loss for words. What do you think about that?
That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. So, I joined the military. I graduated, and then I was, I was a young kid, didn't have a lot of direction, right? I didn't have a lot of direction, and the reason I joined the Marine Corps was because I felt like I needed a challenge, right? I needed a challenge. I needed that internal compass because I really didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to go work somewhere. I was just a lost kid, right? And I wasn't a politician, man. I was out there doing what I had to do to find my way through life. And, people need to understand that service members, whether you're in the Marine Corps, whether you're a soldier, whether you're in the Navy, they're not politicians, man. And they're out there doing the bidding for everybody, right? And so what? You're only going to back up our service members when your favorite guy is in office? Is that really the message that you're sending, man? It's BS, man. It's BS. It's disrespectful. It's distasteful. But here's the irony, right? This kind of takes me back to when Kaepernick took a knee, right? Took a knee when they were doing the anthem, and I've have a lot of fellow veteran friends that, of course it pisses us off. It gets us mad, right? It gets us upset because we're like, wow, But at the end of the day, we fought for his right to express himself. And as much as it hurts, people need to understand that the service members aren't politicians. So whether you can choose to do what you want, but you also have to ask yourself, am I being distasteful? Mm-hmm. Am I bringing politics into into this when it's really just young 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids that are out there losing limbs, losing their lives, and giving everything they have, right? The kid that didn't have a direction in life, the kid that's trying to find his way through life. What if I didn't come back? I've lost friends, and it's just for me, it's distasteful, but it hurts because I also know that I fought for their right to express themselves. So it's a double-edged sword, right?
No, I can agree with what you're saying, because as much as I dislike some of the things people do and say, it's that kind of speech and freedom is the one that should be the most protected, for the simple reason is that's why you served, that's why my brother served, that's why I've had uncles serve, because that was the thing that needed to be protected. Those unpopular speech is the speech that needs to be protected the most.
Right, because somebody said, somebody posted somewhere on one of these social platforms. They said that it was a baseball player. Not going to say what team, or not going to go into too many details, but this is relating to the Pride Month, and I support everybody's free will, right? Free will, freedom of choice. I don't want to bully anybody. I'm not a bully. And they were saying how one of the players just chose not to fall in line, and so they should be, I don't know, reprimanded. I don't know. They should be looked at differently. And I feel like, bringing politics into this is just sad, man. It really is. It's just sad, because I don't feel like it's my place to control people.
Gotcha.
Right? Like, if somebody wants to dye their hair blue, man. If it makes you happy, right? If it makes you happy, if you wanna vote Democrat, man. That's what I fought for. I fought for your right to express yourself. You're not gonna offend me, dude. I got thick skin. I have my values. I have my values, and you don't expect me to tell you what to think or feel and represent. And it goes both ways, right? It's a two-way street.
Yes.
It's about being balanced, brother. It really is. It's about being balanced and having that outlook, right? That balanced outlook. 100%. I think the problem is with social media, bro, and social media, and you've got so much propaganda getting pushed out. They're telling you who you're supposed to hate.
Yeah.
They're telling you who you're supposed to love.
Yeah.
They're telling you, what's the saying? When you're young and you're ideological, you want to save the world. That just means that you have a heart.
Yeah.
It just means that you have a good heart. But when you're old and you're too ideological, that means that you just don't have a brain. It's crazy how, for me, that's how I see it, and I share this with my kids too. I tell them, my mom used to tell me in Spanish, but I share this to them in English. I tell them, it's okay to be open-minded, man. It's okay to be open-minded. It's okay to hear people and listen to people. But you don't want to be so open-minded that your brains just fall out. And then you don't want to be, it's okay to be rigid, but you don't want to be so rigid that you break.
True.
That you just can't understand something that you don't agree with. So now you end up polarized. You end up going to the far right, or you end up going to the far left, And now you're just like, oh, I can't talk to that person. He's a quote unquote libtard,
Yeah.
you know, or I can't talk to this person. He's MAGA, you know. It's you know, it's one of those things that I mean, you can't force this, right? You got to live and learn.
I 100% agree with you. And, you know, I want to say, you know, well said, sir. Mr. Garcia, thank you for your service. Sharon, thank your father for his service. I appreciate you also.
Thank you.
You know, thank you for saying that, because let me tell you something. You said something that really should resonate with many, many people, which is, and clip this. I'm telling AI to clip this for me. The fact that you didn't make it personal, the fact that you said it in an eloquent way, which is, I'm here and I fought and I served this country to protect the speech that is not popular. If that's what they choose to do, I fought to allow them the freedom to do that. And that, my friend, it should be applauded, admired, and respected, because that is what a true serviceman understands. Thank you for that. I appreciate your service, Mr. Garcia. Thank you very much for that. I'm gonna go ahead and close out the show. So if you could do me a favor, Mr. Garcia, if you could let people know again where they can find you, where they can find your podcast, where they can follow you, please let everybody know.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok, the Unpacked Mindset. That's the name of my channel. You can find me on TikTok and YouTube. I'm there. I'm posting twice a week right now, but I plan on doing some more posts. Yeah, I speak about all these things that John and I are talking about. You know, hey, I cover everything. I cover everything from social issues, politics, crime, you know, and everything in between, right? So, yeah, man, you know, hit me up, check me out, like, subscribe, and I'm here supporting John too. You know, like and subscribe his channel. Like I said, it's been a pleasure, man. I enjoyed talking to you and your audience, and it's always nice to bounce our thoughts back and forth, right?
100%. If you could do me a favor and just hang out, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. Mr. Garcia, thank you very much for joining us. The Unpacked Mindset podcast. Please join, subscribe, and make sure that you follow my man, Jess. Mr. Garcia, thank you very much. If you can hang out, I'll get back to you right after this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. I just want to say thank you very much to everybody for joining the show. Sharon, everybody. Look, Sharon, thank you very much. You have no idea how much it means to me that you comment and, you know, you subscribed and you joined the podcast and let us know how you feel about things. Thank you to your father for serving. He's a great man for doing so. I just want to let everybody know, thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. Jess, appreciate it, the fact that you came on. And man, I like this show, man. I like your thought process. I like your points of view, man. And, you know, please, everybody, do me a favor, get on the YouTube and subscribe and hit the notification button. And please do so for my friend, Jess Garcia from the Unpacked Mindset program. And we'll be getting back to you guys. Remember, we're going to have a show next Sunday. I'm working on some things in the very near future. We're going to have a doctor on to talk about some health issues that men come across at the ages of 25, 35, 45, 55, and 65, and some of the things that we need to look for. But I'm also going to have a CPA, I hope I'm saying that right, a CPA come on to talk about money strategies for a man and what we should be doing and looking for. But it's not just for men sometimes, you know, but I do try to tell young men and men to better themselves financially, you know, and emotionally, you know, mentally. So this way we can try to travel through the earth as best way with the best moral compass that we can have. All right. I just want to let you guys know, I appreciate you. Thank you. Smash the like button. Let other people know. Share the videos with people and continue what you're doing. I love you guys. Peace out.
Everything must change.
Yeah, straight out university, the syllabus begins. Check the complex method that separates the men from the kids. We building with 4 pillars. Study the architecture, the lessons in the verses, not just the lecture. See the mind for the money, the muscle is the proof. That global frame is wisdom from the concrete to the roof. And the game is pure knowledge that defines your every action. A strategic satisfaction for a chemical reaction. It's a blueprint for power, not just a simple acquisition. The formula for greatness, a scholarly position. Straight out university, yeah, the lessons in session. Straight out university.